income inequality seems to get argued or debated or discussed at polar opposites, and it's almost like almost everything in the world is not black and white. Yeah. There's no, if you just look at the U.S., we have the largest income gap we've had since the 1920s. We've had huge income gaps and opportunity gaps all around the world. We've got significant youth unemployment issues in Europe, in Latin America, and so forth. But the number of people that have come out of poverty over the last 10 or 15 years, access to health care, access to information, and the world economy are incredibly positive signs. I think the key is, as middle classes get created in the emerging markets, and the middle classes in developed countries like the U.S., Canada, France, the U.K., and so forth, can you maintain them? Yeah. And I think one of the things to keep in mind in terms of, I don't look at income inequality at a macro level long term is not good. It is not good economically, and it's not good socially. But it's not surprising that we've got a large income gap right now, given the disruptive economic transformation we're in. You know, in the U.S., before we had a established national industrial economy, we had huge gaps between rich and poor, those that were creating the wealth and those that wanted to be part of it. And so I think what's important for us to discuss is how do we build common good, policy, philanthropy, and so forth, that builds and maintains a middle class, public education, access to good, affordable health care. Back in industrialization, it was libraries. Today, it's information. So those things have to get resourced and be part of policy if over the next 20, 30 years, we're going to close that gap.
I think, though, when we see, you know, these kind of images that we just had, Oxfam bringing us the statistic, 85 people, 3.5 million people, it kind of blows your mind. You go, wait a minute, this is, you know, how's the world not exploding?
Well, and you know, I actually, and I wish I had it for this conversation, because you know, you were in these conversations real time, and Oxfam delivers its report, and I've asked folks that do some research for us to say, you know, tell me, what about Carnegie and Rockefeller and Vanderbilt? Did the same thing exist? Were there 20 people who had that amount, had half the wealth? Yeah. My guess is yes, that there's going to be a parallel if you look at the industrialists. And we now look back, not you know, universally positively about that generation of leaders, but you know, look at today's biggest philanthropies in America, named after these folks that hoarded all the money. So it's so I get it, and I think Oxfam's done everybody a service by putting it squarely in the narrative. But let's have the conversation.
Well, it is interesting, of course, right? We know the robber baron becomes the philanthropist through noblesse oblige.
Yeah, exactly.
Sort of, you know.
Exactly. Is it good or bad?
Right.
Is it good or bad? At the time, it's probably horrible. But if even more than the philanthropy, my view is, did jobs get created that allowed people to live, and it's not even wealth redistribution from a policy perspective, but you know, we talk so much about inclusive growth, but we're really not focused on it, if you ask me. That, you know, so the jobs today require whole systems change around education, job training, policy, and the flow of money, and we're having a hard time as governments and nonprofits and businesses changing those systems. If you look in the developed world, you know, the job training systems, the education systems, the healthcare systems are so entrenched, so self-interested, that we can't bust it out. And then on the other hand, I would say that the free marketeers would say it's all about innovation. It's all about, you know, the great new idea. Well, that's not true either. The fact is, you need a common good platform where innovation and market, you know, market-driven opportunity sit on. You don't build common good. You don't get market opportunity.
Well, that's the fascinating thing. You know, I mean, obviously we're champions of innovation. It's obviously changed our entire industry and changed our business.
Absolutely.
And yet you see like a discussion where, take a company like Kodak. I think at their peak they employed something like 15,000, 20,000 people.
Right.
Then Instagram, when they were sold for $1 billion, there was 13 people.
Yeah.
So it's an innovation. It's something amazing. You don't want to pull back and go, well, we want to go back to, whatever the point and shoot.
Yeah.
But at the same time, 15,000 jobs, 13 people.
That's right.
With all concentrated wealth.
That's right. And it's if you look at manufacturing, if you look at innovation, it was centralized. So if you look at Bell Labs, if you look at Kodak, if you look at IBM, they, now innovation and research and development is also distributed. So it's nothing's as concentrated as it used to be, including job creation. So therefore, if you look at education anywhere in the world, primary education and then university, it has to recognize what you just described. And we have to train young people to succeed all throughout that value chain. And because at some point, those Instagrams and so forth will create more and more jobs. Your disruption in terms of how you do business, no doubt in the short term displace people in terms of jobs. But if you're more and more successful, you're going to create jobs. And what's challenging, I think, is in an industrial economy, you had these jobs that were created by the manufacturing itself. And I think we're not yet clear on how does technology create the jobs on the periphery, and how do we train people for that to support. But my point is, nonprofits, education systems, governments have to wake up and kind of break down our old systems in order to support this new economy.
It's always, I think, the push and pull. We want innovation, and of course, I think sometimes whether it's creative disruption. And sometimes, I'm sorry, blacksmith. The car's better
anymore.
Than the horse.
That's
You
right.
got to learn something new. I'm sorry.
Well, we're 125 years old.
Yeah.
We are, like a lot of nonprofits in the U.S. that started in the U.S., we're a product of industrialization. Yeah. Everything that we're doing right now to try to innovate and be valuable to people in their lives, we learned through the Industrial Revolution, when people migrated in mass from rural areas into cities for jobs. That created this social set of issues that you had to organize to respond to. Exactly what's happening today. Exactly what's happening today.
Well, this is probably something you spend your entire life talking about, but let me ask you about it. The idea of charity. On one hand, we think of it as sort of, as I said, this noblesse oblige, we're giving to the poor person.
Yeah.
But in fact, the other analogy is the boat, right? If there's a hole on your end of the boat, we're all going down.
Yeah.
So how do you make the case, especially in tough economic times, that this is actually self-interest?
Charity, in my mind and in my experience, is just the business model and a formal process and procedure to allow people to act on what's human. If you didn't have us, or you didn't have any NGO or foundations and so forth, people would connect with each other. Charity and philanthropy, when done well, accelerates that connection, makes it more valuable. It's not about extracting people's money and then whether to help them with their guilt or with their aspiration. That's a process. That's a business model. When we do it well is when we allow people to accelerate and intensify and scale their aspiration and their instinct to help, to connect with each other. And if you look at the issues they don't even have to be global issues. If you look at significant enough, the United Way in Mumbai, working on issues of malaria and sanitation and drinking water, is you have to do that together. And there's an instinct within neighborhoods, within slums, to work together to do that. Charity and philanthropy, like good government, should create greater value in helping them connect, because they're going to solve the problem. That's what it is.